The great chamber floated in space above Viridian Prime, a massive structure built to house the representatives of 47 different species. Inside the council hall, Ambassador Ji-hoon stood at the speaking platform, his hands resting calmly on the podium. Around him, alien delegates shifted in their specialized seating arrangements. Some floated in tanks of liquid. Others perched on crystalline structures. A few hung from the ceiling, on complex harness systems. Ji-hoon had been Earth's voice on this station for 12 years. He had watched humans build the stations, repair the ships, and solve the problems that other species found too difficult or too boring. He had seen human engineers work triple shifts to fix critical systems. He had watched human doctors develop treatments for alien diseases. He had witnessed human teachers share knowledge freely with species who barely acknowledged their presence. Today, he would speak his final words to this assembly. "Honored delegates," Ji-hoon began, his voice steady and clear. "I stand before you to deliver a simple message. Humanity is leaving the galactic community. Effective immediately, all human personnel will begin withdrawal from Council space. Within 6 months, every human engineer, technician, medical professional, and worker will return to human territory. All existing contracts are hereby terminated. We wish you well." The chamber erupted in noise. The Thrain delegates clicked their mandibles in what might have been laughter. The Velon created bubbling sounds in their water tanks. The Rakthi simply glowed brighter, which Ji-hoon had learned meant amusement. Speaker Vorath, a tall being covered in smooth purple skin, raised one of his 4 arms. The noise subsided. "Ambassador Ji-hoon, surely this is a negotiating tactic. What do you want? Better trade terms? A small percentage increase in representation?" Ji-hoon shook his head slowly. "This is not a negotiation. For 200 years, humanity has served this council faithfully. We have built your stations. We have maintained your trade routes. We have solved your technical problems. We have asked for only one thing in return: full membership, equal representation, the dignity of being treated as partners rather than servants. And we have explained," Vorath replied with barely concealed impatience, "that full council membership requires certain qualifications. Humanity simply does not meet the criteria." "We have met every stated requirement," Ji-hoon said quietly. "We have exceeded them. The real reason for our exclusion has always been clear. You find us useful as workers, but you do not see us as equals. That is your choice to make. Just as it is our choice to leave." A Thrain delegate named Korvax stood, its insect-like body clicking as it moved. "You cannot be serious. Who will maintain the antimatter refineries? Who will manage the agricultural systems? Who will update the navigation charts through the dangerous regions?" "Those are questions you will need to answer," Ji-hoon replied. "We have left detailed documentation for all systems under human operation. Your own experts should be able to take over. After all, you have repeatedly assured us that human contributions are adequate but unremarkable. Surely replacing adequate work should pose no significant challenge." The chamber fell silent at that. Ji-hoon had quoted directly from the Council's official rejection of humanity's membership petition, delivered just 3 months earlier. Councillor Thessa of the Thrain leaned forward. "Ambassador, please, let us discuss this reasonably. Perhaps we were hasty in our previous decision. We could review humanity's application again. RB. Reist. RB. 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 The time for discussion has passed," Ji-hoon said. "For decades, we made our case. We presented our achievements. We demonstrated our value. You rejected us each time. We are not angry, Councillor Thessa. We are simply done." He touched a control on the podium. A holographic display appeared, showing the locations of every human installation, ship, and worker throughout Council space. There were thousands of markers spread across the known galaxy. As of this moment, withdrawal has begun. Human ships are already departing from the outer stations. We will proceed in an orderly fashion. We will not sabotage anything. We will not take what is not ours. We will simply leave. And we will not be coming back. Hour. 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 Vorath stood again, and this time there was an edge to his voice. You are making a mistake. Humanity needs the Council. You need our protection, our trade networks, our resources. Where will you go? What will you do? Jihoon allowed himself a small smile. We will do what humans have always done, Speaker Vorath. We will adapt. We will build. We will thrive. We did not need the Council when our ancestors first reached the stars. We do not need the Council now. This is foolishness. Korvax clicked. Emotional human pride. You will be back within a year. Begging for readmittance. End quote. Perhaps, Jihoon acknowledged, but I do not think so. You see, Counselor Korvax, you have made a fundamental error in your understanding of humanity. You saw us doing the difficult work, the dangerous work, the tedious work that your own species avoided. You assumed this was because we were only capable of such simple tasks. It never occurred to you that we did this work because it needed to be done, and no one else was willing to do it. He gestured to the holographic display. Every system marked here was barely functional before humans arrived. We did not just maintain these systems. We rebuilt them. We improved them. We made them work in ways your own engineers said was impossible. And we did this not because we sought your approval, but because we believed in the dream of a functioning galactic civilization. Jihoon's expression hardened slightly. But we will not sacrifice our dignity for that dream. We will not accept being second-class citizens in a community we have done so much to build. So we are leaving. Use the manuals we have provided. Apply your superior technology and ancient wisdom to the problems we solved daily. Prove that humans truly were as unremarkable as you claimed. He stepped back from the podium. This is my final act as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. I wish you all success in your future endeavors. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. And also, thanks for watching. And I'll see you with now. Round Bennett out. Jihoon turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the chamber erupted in shouting, clicking, bubbling, and flashing lights. Demands that he return to the podium. Threats of consequences. Expressions of disbelief. He did not look back. Outside the chamber, Captain Doyun waited with a small security detail. How did they take it? He asked. Jihoon allowed himself a tired smile. About as expected. They think we are bluffing. They think we will fail without them. They think we will come crawling back. Will we? Doyun asked. No, Jihoon said with absolute certainty. We will not. They walked together through the corridors of the station that human hands had built. In 6 months, no human would walk these halls. The council would be on its own. And they had no idea what was coming. 3 months had passed since the last human transport ship vanished into slip space. The Galactic Council had moved forward with confidence, assuring member species that the transition would be smooth. Committee meetings were held. Task forces were assembled. Expert teams from a dozen species were dispatched to take over human-operated facilities. The first real problem emerged at the Belthros antimatter refineries. The facility hung in orbit around a dying red giant, a massive complex of spheres and cylinders that produced the exotic fuel that powered faster-than-light travel throughout the galaxy. For 80 years, a human crew of 200 had operated the refineries, producing antimatter with near-perfect efficiency and 0 accidents. Chief Engineer Vorath, nephew of the Council Speaker, and a Thrain with 17 advanced degrees, arrived with a team of 50 specialists. They found the facilities clean, organized, and completely operational. The control rooms hummed with power. Display screens showed normal readings. The human crew had even left behind 3,000 pages of technical documentation. Vorath was confident. How difficult could this be? Humans had operated these systems with their limited lifespans and simple brains. Surely the combined expertise of the galaxy's finest engineers would master them quickly. The first problem appeared within hours. The antimatter containment fields needed constant adjustment. The documentation described the process clearly, but executing it required simultaneous manipulation of controls across 17 different subsystems. Each subsystem used a different programming language. Each language had been created by a different species over thousands of years. The humans had somehow integrated all 17 languages into a unified control system. They had done it so seamlessly that it looked simple, but when Vorath's team tried to make the adjustments described in the manuals, nothing worked correctly. The commands conflicted. The systems rejected each other. Error messages appeared in languages some team members could not even read. How did they do this? Vorath muttered, staring at the screens. The documentation says engineer Hyunwoo designed this integration system, but there is no explanation of how it actually works. One of his assistants, a young Rakthi named Prism, studied the code carefully. I think they wrote custom translation protocols. Millions of lines of them, each one designed to make these incompatible systems work together. Show me the protocols, Vorath demanded. Prism highlighted section after section of code. Here, and throughout the entire system, but I cannot understand the logic. The protocols seem to predict problems before they happen and route around them. It is like the system is thinking. Impossible, Vorath said. Automated systems do not think. They follow programmed instructions. Loose programmed. Automated system. Then I do not know how this works, Prism admitted. Over the following weeks, Vorath's team managed to keep the refineries operating at 30% capacity. They could not match the efficiency the humans had achieved. Worse, they lived in constant fear. The documentation warned repeatedly about containment field failures. If the antimatter ever contacted normal matter, the explosion would vaporize everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. The humans had prevented such disasters daily. Vorath was not sure his team could do the same. On the agricultural world of Hestron VI, the situation was even worse. Dr. Yunji had spent 40 years on Hestron, managing the terraformed planet that fed 30 billion people across 7 systems. She had transformed marginal growing conditions into abundant harvests through careful management of soil composition, atmospheric processing, and genetic crop optimization. The Velen botanists who replaced her were experts in their field. They had centuries of experience with agricultural science. They studied Yunji's records and felt confident they could maintain her work. The first harvest after Yunji's departure yielded 60% less food than projected. The Velen team investigated frantically. The automated systems were running perfectly. The soil composition matched the documented parameters. The atmospheric processors were functioning within normal ranges. Everything should have been fine. But the crops were dying. After weeks of analysis, the team leader, a Velon named Cascade, discovered the problem. Unji had been making manual adjustments to the atmospheric processors every single day. Small changes, tiny variations in oxygen levels, humidity, and trace gases. She had been compensating for factors that the automated systems could not detect, weather patterns that shifted daily, solar radiation fluctuations, subtle changes in the planet's magnetic field. Unji had somehow sensed these variations and adjusted for them instinctively. The documentation mentioned these adjustments but described them as minor corrections based on observed conditions. There were no formulas, no equations, just notes like increased oxygen by 0.3% due to morning cloud cover patterns, or adjusted humidity in zones 7 through 12 because the crops looked stressed. The crops looked stressed. That was the extent of the technical explanation. Cascade tried to replicate Yunji's approach. She studied the crops carefully. She made small adjustments based on her observations. but she lacked whatever instinct had guided the human doctor. The crops continued to fail. 30 billion people would face food shortages by the end of the year. In the scarred nebula, things were even simpler and somehow more catastrophic. Captain Doyun had maintained a trade route through the nebula for 20 years. The route saved ships 3 weeks of travel time and had become essential to commerce in the region. Other captains had tried to map the route themselves, but the nebula's electromagnetic storms shifted constantly. Ships that deviated even slightly from the safe path were torn apart by energy surges. Doyun had updated the navigation charts every single day. He had personally flown the route hundreds of times, noting the subtle changes in the storm patterns. Other captains simply downloaded his updates and trusted his judgment. With Doyun gone, the charts stopped updating. Captains tried using the last data he had provided. Some made it through. Others did not. In the first month alone, 3 ships were lost. 47 crew members died. The trade route was declared too dangerous and officially closed. Commerce in the region slowed to a crawl. Prices for basic goods doubled, then tripled. All because one human pilot was no longer there to fly the route each morning and update a navigation chart. Speaker Vorath called an emergency council session. He stood before the assembly, his 4 arms spread in a gesture of calm reassurance. "These are temporary challenges," he announced. "We are adapting to new circumstances. Our experts are developing solutions. There is no need for concern." One. But in the private chambers afterward, Vorath met with his closest advisors. "How bad is it really?" he asked. His military advisor, a scarred Thrain named Executor, clicked his mandibles grimly. "Bad. The antimatter production is critical. If it drops much further, we will have to start rationing fuel. That means reduced trade, reduced travel, reduced everything." "What about the agricultural problems?" "Worse. We are looking at potential famine across multiple systems. We have emergency food reserves, but they will not last if the harvests continue to fail." Vorath rubbed his face with one hand. "They left us manuals, instructions. How can this be so difficult?" "The manuals tell us what to do," Executor said quietly. "They do not tell us how to think like a human. And that appears to be the problem. The humans were not just following procedures. They were solving problems creatively, constantly, in ways we do not fully understand. Then we learn," Vorath insisted. "We adapt. We are the Galactic Council. We have survived for 10,000 years. We will survive this." But even as he spoke the words, Vorath felt a cold doubt settling in his chest. They had dismissed the humans as simple workers, useful but unremarkable, easily replaced. What if they had been wrong? 6 months after the humans left, the galaxy was falling apart. The crisis with the lattice communication network started small. A relay station in the outer rim went dark. Then another. Then 5 more. Within weeks, entire sections of the galaxy had lost long-range communication capability. Ships traveled blind. Trade coordination became impossible. Diplomatic messages took weeks instead of hours to reach their destinations. The lattice had always just worked. It was a miracle of technology. A network of 40,000 relay stations spread across known space, each one receiving, amplifying, and retransmitting signals in a complex dance that allowed instant communication across light years. What the Council had not realized was that humans had maintained every single one of those relay stations. Engineer Minji had supervised a team of 800 human technicians scattered throughout the galaxy. Each technician was responsible for roughly 50 relay stations, traveling constantly from one to another, performing maintenance, making adjustments, and solving problems that the automated systems could not handle. The Council's engineers had assumed the relay stations were largely autonomous. The human technicians were just there to handle minor issues. Routine work that anyone could do. They were wrong. Each relay station was unique. They operated in different gravitational fields, different radiation environments, different spatial conditions. The stations near black holes needed constant recalibration. The stations in nebulae had to filter out electromagnetic interference. The stations in empty space dealt with particle impacts and micrometeorite damage. The humans had handled all of this with barely any documentation. They had simply known how to fix things. When a relay station started showing irregular behavior, a human technician would arrive, spend a few hours running diagnostics, make some adjustments, and the problem would be solved. Now there were no human technicians. The automated maintenance systems tried to handle the problems, but they were not designed for the infinite variety of issues that arose. A station would go offline, and the automated systems would follow their programming exactly, which often made things worse instead of better. The council assembled emergency repair teams. They sent out their best engineers. But there were 40,000 stations and only a few hundred qualified technicians available. They could not be everywhere at once. The relay stations failed faster than they could be repaired. The lattice began to fragment. Whole regions of space went silent. At the Tarthos Station Medical Research Facility, the consequences of Dr. Yunji's absence became catastrophic in a different way. The facility had been humanity's gift to the galaxy. A place where human doctors worked alongside alien medical professionals to develop treatments that worked across species barriers. Dr. Unji had been the heart of that effort. She had spent 50 years studying the biological differences between species and finding the underlying similarities. Her breakthrough work on pan-species antibiotics had saved millions of lives. The Velon researchers who took over the facility found decades' worth of data, detailed notes on experiments, careful documentation of results, everything a researcher could want. Except they could not make sense of it. Unji's research methods were unconventional. She made intuitive leaps that the documentation could not explain. She would test combinations of compounds that had no logical reason to work together, and somehow they would produce results. Her notes would say things like, "Tried adding compound 73 because it felt right," or "adjusted the mixture based on color change in solution." The Velon researchers were scientists. They worked from theory. They made logical predictions and tested them systematically. Unji had worked from instinct, from feel, from some kind of creative insight that could not be captured in a database. When a new disease outbreak occurred on the mining colony of Viridian 7, affecting both Thrain and Rakthi workers, the Tarthos facility could not develop a treatment. They had all of Unji's research, but they could not replicate her process. The disease spread. The death toll climbed. In the outer margins, the fragile peace that diplomat Minji had maintained for 30 years shattered completely. The Corvin and the Stalax had been enemies for generations. Their territory overlapped in a disputed region rich in valuable minerals. Both species claimed historical ownership. Both refused to back down. Minji had negotiated a power-sharing arrangement that neither side liked, but both sides could accept. She had spent decades meeting with leaders from both species, finding compromise, building trust, and preventing conflict. The agreement had always been delicate. It required constant attention, regular mediation, and someone both sides respected enough to hear out. With Minji gone, old grievances resurfaced quickly. A Corvin mining team entered a disputed zone. Stalax forces confronted them. Shots were fired. Within days, both species mobilized their fleets. The council sent diplomats to mediate. They tried to use Minji's agreements as a framework for peace. But neither the Corvin nor the Stalax trusted the council diplomats. They had trusted Minji. They had believed she genuinely cared about finding fair solutions. The council diplomats were just doing their jobs. War erupted across the outer margins. 3 other conflicts that Minji had quietly managed also reignited. The council's peacekeeping forces, already stretched thin, could not contain the violence. In the council chambers on Viridian Prime, Speaker Vorath faced a hostile assembly. Delegates from 24 species demanded answers. Some wanted the humans brought back at any cost. Others wanted to know why the council had been so dependent on a single species. A few called for Vorath's resignation. We are managing these challenges, Vorath insisted, his voice strained. Yes, there have been difficulties. Yes, the transition has been harder than anticipated. But we will adapt. We will find solutions. When? Demanded Counselor Thessa. How many more stations must go dark? How many more must die from disease or starvation or war before you admit that we cannot do this without them? We will not beg the humans to return, Vorath said firmly. We are the Galactic Council. We have built civilizations across 1,000 worlds. We will not be held hostage by one species. Vorath. Vorath. Pride, Thessa hissed. This is about your pride. You rejected their membership application. You called them unremarkable. You drove them away. And now, you refuse to admit your mistake. They were workers, Vorath snapped. Useful workers, yes, but workers nonetheless. They should have been grateful for the opportunity to serve the greater galactic community. The chamber fell silent. Even Vorath's supporters looked uncomfortable. It was Prism, the young Rakthi engineer, who finally spoke up from the technical staff seating area. Permission to address the council? Quote, Vorath waved a hand irritably. Granted. Prism's crystalline body flickered with nervous energy. I have been studying the antimatter refinery systems. I have spent 3 months analyzing how engineer Hyun-woo integrated 17 incompatible control languages. I have looked at every line of code. I have traced every connection. And I have reached a conclusion. Which is? Vorath asked. Hyun-woo was a genius, Prism said simply. The integration system he built is the most elegant piece of engineering I have ever seen. It solves problems I did not even know existed. It anticipates failures before they happen. It is beautiful. Prism paused, his glow dimming. And I cannot replicate it. None of us can. We can maintain what he built, barely, if we are very careful. But if anything goes seriously wrong, we will not be able to fix it. Because we do not think the way he thought. That is one human, Vorath protested. One exceptional individual. Yes. Prism agreed. One human. Like Dr. Unji, who somehow understood biology across species barriers better than researchers who had studied it for centuries. Like Captain Do-yoon, who could navigate the scarred nebula when no one else could. Like Engineer Minji, who kept the lattice running. Like Diplomat Minji, who prevented wars. Prism's glow brightened with anger. You called them unremarkable. You said they were adequate, but nothing special. You were wrong. They were extraordinary. Every single one of them. And we did not see it because we were too arrogant to look. Vorath had no response. The council session ended in chaos, delegates argued. Accusations flew. But beneath the noise, a terrible realization was settling in. They had built their civilization on human labor and human ingenuity. They had taken it for granted. And now, that foundation was crumbling. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the humans were watching, and they were not coming back. 1 year after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council authorized a desperate measure. They would send a formal delegation to human space. They would apologize. They would offer full council membership. They would beg if necessary. Speaker Vorath had resigned in disgrace 3 months earlier. The new speaker was Counselor Thessa, who had opposed the treatment of humans from the beginning. She had argued for their full membership. She had warned that driving them away would have consequences. She had been right. But there was no satisfaction in it. The galaxy was dying, and only humanity could save it. Thessa assembled a delegation that included representatives from every major species. They brought gifts worth billions of credits. They prepared treaties granting humans unprecedented rights and privileges. They practiced speeches of apology and contrition. The delegation traveled in the Council's finest diplomatic vessel, escorted by an honor guard of 7 ships. They approached the border of human space with all their transponders broadcasting peaceful intentions. They were met by a single automated station. The station was small and unremarkable, just a sphere hanging in the darkness with a single communications array. As soon as the delegation's ships came within range, the array activated and began broadcasting a message. Ambassador Jihoon's face appeared on every screen in every ship. He looked older than he had a year ago, more tired, but his eyes were calm and his voice was steady. Greetings to the Galactic Council delegation. This is a recorded message. If you are seeing this, it means you have come to human space seeking to renew contact. We appreciate your interest. However, humanity has decided that we are not ready to rejoin galactic civilization at this time. For man, Thessa, watching from the bridge of the lead ship, felt her hearts sink. Jihoon's image continued. We understand that the Council may be facing difficulties in managing the systems that human workers previously maintained. We sympathize with your situation. The documentation we provided should be sufficient for competent engineers to operate these systems. If you are experiencing problems, we suggest reviewing the manuals more carefully or consulting with your own technical experts. The manuals do not work, Thessa shouted at the screen, knowing it could not hear her. We also understand, Jihoon said, that some members of the Council may wish to offer humanity full membership as an incentive to return. We appreciate this gesture. However, full membership in an organization that we no longer respect or trust is not an appealing offer. He leaned forward slightly, and his expression hardened. For 200 years, humanity served the Council faithfully. We built your stations. We maintained your infrastructure. We solved your problems. We asked for dignity and equality. We were refused repeatedly. You told us we were adequate, but unremarkable. You treated us as servants, not partners. We were wrong, Thessa whispered. We know we were wrong. Now you come to us because you need us, Jihoon continued. Not because you respect us, not because you value us, but because your systems are failing and you cannot fix them yourselves. You want us to return to our positions as workers and problem solvers so that your comfortable lives can continue undisturbed. His expression softened slightly, but his voice remained firm. The answer is no. Humanity will not return to save you from the consequences of your own arrogance. The galaxy is your responsibility now. We hope you will rise to the challenge. We truly do. But we will not sacrifice our dignity to make things easier for you. The image paused, and then Jihoon added one final statement. If any members of this delegation wish to leave personal messages, you may transmit them to this station. We will receive them. We may even read them, but you should not expect responses. This conversation is over. Please depart from human space immediately. Any ships that do not leave within 6 hours will be escorted out by human defense forces. The screen went dark. Thessa sat in silence for a long moment. Around her, the other delegates looked stunned. Some appeared angry. Others seemed to be on the verge of tears, or whatever their species used to express grief. Can we bypass the automated system? Asked Executor, who had joined the delegation as a military advisor. Can we transmit directly to human worlds? The ship's communication officer checked her systems. No, Executor. There is some kind of barrier around human space. All our signals are being intercepted and blocked by automated defense systems. This station is the only thing we can reach. Thessa stood and walked to the main view screen, staring at the small automated station. Such a simple thing. Just a sphere and an antenna. But it represented an impenetrable wall. We could try to force our way through, Executor suggested carefully. Our ships are armed. We could. No, Thessa said sharply. Absolutely not. We came here to apologize, not to start a war. Besides, the humans built most of our defensive systems. Do you really think they do not know how to defeat them? She turned to face the delegation. We will do as Ambassador Jihoon suggested. Anyone who wishes to leave a personal message may do so. Then we return to Council space and report our failure. Over the next few hours, dozens of delegates recorded messages. Some were formal apologies. Others were personal pleas. A few were angry demands. Thessa recorded her own message last. She stood alone, in a small recording chamber, and looked directly into the camera. Ambassador Jihoon, this is Counselor Thessa. I voted against your exclusion from full council membership. I argued that humanity deserved equal status. I was overruled. I want you to know that I understand why you left. And I support your decision. You deserve better than we gave you. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I also want you to know what has happened since you left. 37 star systems have lost reliable power generation. The agricultural worlds are facing famine. The lattice communication network is failing. Wars have broken out in regions you helped keep peaceful. Millions have died. Millions more will die. Thessa's voice cracked slightly. We did not understand what you were doing for us. We thought the systems ran themselves. We thought any competent engineer could do your work. We were fools. We were arrogant fools who took your genius for granted. She straightened, regaining her composure. I am not asking you to come back. I understand that you will not. I am simply telling you that we finally see the truth. You were remarkable. Every single one of you. And we will regret losing you for generations to come. Thessa ended the recording and transmitted it to the automated station. Then she gave the order to withdraw. The delegation returned to Viridian Prime 3 weeks later. Thessa delivered her report to the full council assembly. There would be no human rescue. No miraculous salvation. They were on their own. The council chamber erupted in panic and recrimination. Some delegates blamed Thessa for not negotiating hard enough. Others blamed the previous administration for driving the humans away in the first place. Still others blamed the humans themselves for abandoning the galaxy in its time of need. Through it all, young Prism sat quietly in the technical staff section, studying a data pad. He had been analyzing human engineering records non-stop for months, trying to understand how they thought, how they solved problems, how they made the impossible work. After the session ended, Prism approached Thessa in the corridor outside. Counselor, may I speak with you? Endiden, may I speak with you? Of course, Prism. The young Rakthi's crystalline form flickered nervously. I have been thinking about our situation. The humans are not coming back. We agree on this. Yes? Yes, Thessa said heavily. They are not coming back. Then we must learn to think like they did, Prism said. We must study their methods. We must understand their approach to problems. It will take time. It will take generations. Perhaps. But it is our only option. Thessa looked at the young engineer with something like hope. Can we do that? Can we really learn to think like humans? Don? Prism's glow dimmed. I do not know. But I will try. And perhaps others will try as well. It is better than giving up. We. Far away, in human space, Ambassador Jihoon sat in his office on Earth and reviewed the messages the delegation had left. He read Thessa's message 3 times. His assistant, Captain Doyun, stood nearby. Do you think they have learned their lesson? Some of them have. Jihoon said quietly. Thessa understands. That young Rakthi engineer, Prism, seems to get it. But the Council as a whole? The galaxy as a civilization? I do not think so. Not yet. Will we ever go back? Jihoon was silent for a long moment. Perhaps. In a few generations. When new leaders emerge, who never participated in the old arrogance. When the galaxy has rebuilt itself and learned to value cooperation over hierarchy. Maybe then we can talk. And, until then? Until then, Jihoon said. Humanity will chart its own course among the stars. 5 years had passed since humanity closed its borders. In that time, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was a shadow of what it had been. 23 species had withdrawn completely. choosing isolation over the struggle to maintain the complex systems that had held civilization together. The remaining members clung to what they could preserve, managing a few core worlds and accepting that their golden age was over. The antimatter refineries at Belthros operated at 15% capacity. Chief Engineer Vorath, now an old being worn down by 5 years of stress, had managed to keep 3 of the original 12 production facilities running. It was not enough. Fuel rationing was strict. Only essential ships received antimatter. Trade had collapsed to a fraction of its former scale. The agricultural worlds fared slightly better. Through painful trial and error, the Velon botanists had learned some of Dr. Unji's methods. They would never match her instinctive understanding, but they had developed systematic approaches that kept people fed. Barely. The famines had killed millions before the new techniques took hold. The lattice communication network had fragmented into regional systems. Some areas maintained reliable contact. Others had gone dark completely. The galaxy felt larger now. More distant. Less connected. In the outer margins, 3 wars still burned. The conflicts that diplomat Minji had prevented continued to claim lives. The Council's peacekeeping forces had long since given up trying to stop them. But not everything had collapsed. Young engineers like Prism had devoted themselves to understanding human methods. They studied the documentation obsessively. They experimented. They failed repeatedly and learned from their failures. Slowly, painfully, they began to grasp concepts that had seemed impossible 5 years earlier. Prism himself had become something of a celebrity among technical specialists. His work on maintaining the Belthros refineries had saved countless lives. He gave lectures about human-style problem-solving that emphasized creativity, intuition, and adaptive thinking rather than rigid adherence to established procedures. It was a start. A small start. But it was something. Meanwhile, humanity thrived. Free from the burden of maintaining council infrastructure, human civilization experienced a renaissance. Resources that had been spent fixing other species' problems were now invested in human worlds. New colonies were established. Research facilities flourished. Art and culture bloomed in ways that had been impossible when humanity's best and brightest were scattered across the galaxy working on council projects. Director Sunho stood on the observation deck of the New Horizon station, watching construction crews put the final touches on humanity's new slip-space relay network. It was faster than the old council system, more efficient, and completely independent. "We will be ready to activate the network next month," reported his chief engineer, a young woman named Jiwan. "Full coverage of all human territory, plus the exploration zones." "Excellent work," Sunho said. "What about the diplomatic situation?" "3 more species have made contact," Jiwan replied, consulting her datapad. None of them were council members. They are interested in trade agreements and cultural exchange. All on equal terms, Jiwan replied. Sunho smiled. In the 5 years since humanity withdrew from the council, they had made first contact with 17 new species. None of them had ever heard of the Galactic Council. None of them carried the prejudices or hierarchical thinking that had made council membership so frustrating. These new relationships were partnerships between equals. Trade based on mutual benefit. Cultural exchange driven by genuine curiosity. Scientific collaboration, without one species assuming superiority over another. It was everything humanity had hoped the Galactic Council would be. "We are also receiving regular requests from Council space," Jiwan added carefully. "Ships approaching our borders. Some are refugees seeking asylum. Others are researchers wanting to study at our universities. A few are diplomats asking to discuss renewed contact." "What is the current policy?" Sunho asked. "We evaluate each request individually. Refugees with genuine need are accepted. Researchers must apply through normal channels like anyone else. Diplomats are politely turned away unless they represent individual species rather than the council as a whole." Sunho nodded. It was a fair policy. Humanity had no desire for revenge or to see innocent people suffer. but they would not be drawn back into the Council's dysfunction, either. On Earth, Ambassador Jihoon had retired from diplomatic service and now taught at the University of New Seoul. His course on interspecies relations was the most popular on campus. Students packed his lecture hall, eager to hear first-hand accounts of humanity's time in the Galactic Council. Today's lecture focused on a question that came up frequently. A student in the front row raised her hand. Ambassador, do you think humanity will ever rejoin galactic civilization? Jihoon considered the question carefully. He always did. That depends on what you mean by rejoin. Will we return to the Galactic Council as it existed when we left? Almost certainly not. That institution is effectively dead. It may limp along for decades, but it will never recover its former influence. He walked to the window and looked up at the stars. But will humanity engage with other species? Build alliances? Participate in galactic affairs? Yes, we already are. Just not with the Council. Another student spoke up. Do you think they have learned anything? The Council species? Some of them have, Jihoon replied. I still receive messages occasionally from Counselor Thessa and from a young engineer named Prism. They understand what went wrong. They are working to build something better. Whether they will succeed, I cannot say. Do you regret leaving? The first student asked. Jihoon turned back to face the class. No. Leaving was the right decision. We spent 200 years trying to earn the Council's respect. We demonstrated our value in every way possible. They refused to see it. At some point, you have to stop begging for recognition and simply move forward without it. He smiled slightly. Besides, look at what we have accomplished in just 5 years. Look at our new colonies, our research breakthroughs, our cultural flowering. Look at the partnerships we have built with species who treat us as equals from day one. We could not have done any of this while we were breaking our backs to keep the Council functioning. The students nodded thoughtfully. The galaxy is vast, Jihoon continued. There is room for many different approaches to civilization. The Council chose hierarchy and rigid structure. We choose flexibility and partnership. Time will tell which approach serves better. After the lecture ended, Jihoon returned to his office to find a new message waiting. It was from Prism. The young Rakhthi's crystalline face appeared on the screen, flickering with excitement. Ambassador Jihoon, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to share some news. We have successfully restored one of the Belthros antimatter refineries to 60% capacity. It is still far below human efficiency, but it is better than we have managed before. Well, Prism paused, his glow dimming slightly. I studied Engineer Hyunwoo's integration protocols for 3 years before I began to understand his approach. He was not just solving the immediate problem, he was building a system that could adapt to future problems we could not predict. It was brilliant. The young engineer's glow brightened again. I have been teaching others what I have learned. We have formed a study group dedicated to human problem-solving methods. We call ourselves the Adaptive Engineering Institute. We are small, only 37 members across 4 species, but we are growing. Prism looked directly into the camera. I know humanity will not return to help us. I understand why. But I wanted you to know that some of us are trying to be better. We are trying to learn from our mistakes. Perhaps one day, many generations from now, we will have built a civilization worthy of partnership with humanity. The message ended. Jihoon sat in silence for a long time, thinking about the young Rakthi engineer who had dedicated his life to understanding human thinking, about Counselor Thessa, who had fought against humanity's exclusion and now worked to rebuild a broken system, about all the individuals throughout the galaxy who were trying, despite everything, to create something better. Maybe there was hope after all. Not in his lifetime. Perhaps. Maybe not for generations. But, eventually, maybe. He composed a brief reply. Prism. Thank you for your message. Your progress is impressive. Keep learning. Keep teaching. Keep questioning the old assumptions. That is how civilizations improve. I wish you success in your efforts. Perhaps one day, when new leaders have emerged, who never participated in the old mistakes, our peoples can speak again as equals. Until then, I am glad to know there are beings like you, working toward a better future. Ambassador Ji-hoon Kim. He sent the message and returned to preparing tomorrow's lecture. Outside his window, the stars shone bright and eternal. Somewhere among them, the remnants of the Galactic Council struggled to survive. Somewhere else, humanity built wonders and forged new friendships with species who had never learned to take them for granted. The galaxy was vast and full of possibility. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as servants or workers or second-class citizens, but as equals, as partners, as builders of their own destiny, and they would never be silent again.